If you've been wearing hair systems for a while, you've probably experienced that at some point, hair starts falling out of your hair system. This can be kind of an unsettling experience, right? You have your new hair, and now your new hair is falling out. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about all the reasons why your hair system might be shedding hair. Some are good, some are bad, some we can control, some we can't control. This video is sponsored by Lord Hair, so make sure if you're looking for your first hair system, you check out the link down below. Now, let's just jump right into the topic of hair shedding, shall we? Now, the first one is the one that I want to get out of the way and talk about as soon as possible, because a lot of people think that this is the reason that their hair is falling out of their hair system, and they want to blame it on this reason. And sometimes it's a valid reason, but not always. And that is manufacturer defects. Sometimes you get a hair system right from the manufacturer and it's already beginning to shed hair very, very quickly and easily. This shouldn't naturally be the case for most hair systems. There are some exceptions for when hair falls out of some hair systems easier than others, which we'll talk about in this episode right here. But generally, if it's happening right from when you first get a hair system and it's very, very noticeable, there's a chance that there is something wrong with your hair system, that it wasn't made correctly. This is why it's important to not just get something off of, like Alibaba or something like that when you don't know what you are buying. Go from a trusted manufacturer, and guess what? Sometimes even they have slip-ups. All right, reason number 2 is physical force. This involves what you're putting to the hair system through on a day-to-day basis. Now, this could be a couple different things. We could say scratching your hair system. It could be pulling your hair system, or it could just be something like sleep or just your average everyday things that you're doing. The more wear and tear that we put on our hair systems, the more that our hair systems are going to shed. Our hair is held in by knots or V-loops or injection or another method like this, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But these are all susceptible to degrading with usage. Now, sleep is one of the biggest reasons why hair systems begin to shed, because people aren't using a non-friction pillowcase that can put a lot of wear and tear on your hair system when you're rustling around in your sleep. But this can also occur when people have an itchy scalp and they begin scratching their hair all the time, or if they are pulling their hair, if it's something that's habitual. These are all factors that we need to eliminate and learn how to control. Sleep is the biggest one though, because we're unconscious for about 6 to 9 hours per night, and a lot goes on during that time period. So if you don't have a silk or satin pillowcase, that's something that you want to get immediately, and it's something that you'll notice a very dramatic effect on your hair system pretty much immediately. As soon as I switched to that type of pillowcase, my hair system started lasting a lot longer. Of course, with that being said, if someone is wearing their hair system 24/7, it's going to take a lot more wear and tear just naturally than someone who is wearing it for 4 to 8 hours during the day, taking it off, putting it back on in the morning, that type of situation. So if you're a daily wearer where you have it on just continually, it's going to take more wear and tear than someone that takes it on and off. Next up, number 3 is water damage. Now, this is something that I didn't really know before doing a little bit more research about this. Now, when most people think about water damage, they're thinking about, hey, chlorine, maybe salt, that's going to potentially damage the actual hair itself. But here is the thing that I had never, ever thought of. And that is, if you are wearing a hair system and you soak for a long time in water, the base can actually absorb some of the water, causing it to swell. When it swells, it can actually loosen up the knots in the base of the unit, creating loose hair. This is another one of the reasons why they always recommend that you're wearing a swim cap when you're going in a pool or you're gonna be in water for an extended period of time. If it's an odd occasion where you're at the beach and you dunk your head, go for a quick swim, shouldn't be an issue. But if this is something that you're going to be doing on a regular basis, this is something that you're going to want to prevent. So make sure that you're taking care of your hair in water. Now, number 4 actually comes to how you're washing and drying your hair. We've talked a lot about that on the channel. And here's the thing, we want to make sure that we're not using too hot of water, and we'll cover heat a little bit later in this video, but not too hot of water. And you want to make sure that you're being very, very gentle when you're putting product on your hair, the right product, and when you're actually drying your hair. A lot of people are used to, when they have their natural hair, to just kind of doing this, right? Like that's how you kind of shampoo and dry your hair. You kind of give it the old shake and bake action. With a hair system, we have to be a little bit more fragile. We have to be a little bit more gentle. And this is something that just requires a slight modification in your habits and how you do this. But make sure that you're being gentle on your hair systems when you're washing them, applying product, and when you're drying them, just towel blot it. I know it's very, very tempting to just kind of shake and bake with a towel. Make sure that you're getting as much of the wetness out of it, but if you give yourself just a little bit longer time to dry your hair, if you let it air dry naturally, it's gonna come out so much better, and it's gonna last a lot longer. Which, lastly, when it comes to washing and drying your hair, this isn't something that you have to do every single day. It's something that you can do maybe twice a week, once a week, and make sure that you're washing it and then conditioning it. Deep conditioning your hair is going to give it so much extra life. So make sure you have a good conditioner and that you're doing it twice a week, once a week, but not every single day. It's not necessary, and it's all that extra wear and tear on your system will eventually catch up. Now, moving on to point number 5. This is the point of having too much or frequent heat on your hair. Most of the time, this comes in the form of blow dryer. Heat can actually damage the disulfide bonds inside of your hair, which in turn is going to make it weaker. It's going to eliminate some of its strength, and it's possible that it will cause split ends as you start to do this. So in general, heat is not something that you want to be exposing your hair to a lot. Of course, as we go about our day-to-day activity, we're going to be being exposed to the sun. We're going to be exposed to different heat sources. Don't worry about stuff like that. We're talking about extreme heat. And when it comes to hair blowers, sometimes people use the hot setting, and it's excessive and it's staying inside of the region for a long time. So this can damage your hair. If you're going to use a hair dryer, try to use it on the cool setting. That will help a lot. All right, point number, I don't even know because I've completely lost track. We're gonna be talking about the effect of products with alcohol in it, or just harsh products in general. Now, alcohol will dry out hair over time. So when you're looking at your products that you're buying, whether it is shampoos, conditioners, whether it's styling products, whether it's products specifically for hair systems, you're gonna wanna check to make sure that there's not a lot of alcohol content in it. Now, of course, alcohol can be used in effective ways for dealing with our adhesives. So this is something that has to be managed. If we can find things that don't have alcohol, that might be even better. And that's something I'm experimenting with right now. I've had users suggest actually using coconut oil as a way to break down bonds as opposed to using alcohol ever on skin or on the hair itself inside of a system, and that itself works, but it does require a little bit longer. Alcohol does also affect your skin exposure to that, so overall, maybe it's not the best to use alcohol, but they are faster, or so the anecdotal evidence that people have sent me via email and their experiences seem to say. So this is a trade-off that, if you're going to be using alcohol or C22 or a different type of solvent to break down adhesives and, glue residue, things like this, it might be shortening the life of your hair system. Are you going to be able to get the maximum duration out of your hair system if you're using products like that? Maybe not, but the question is, do you have that extra time to not be able to use those products? So this is something that you got to take with a grain of salt and use accordingly. I think we're on point 7 or point 8. One thing that causes a lot of hair shedding is tangled hair and how we're using brushes inside of our hair. One thing that you'll learn with a hair system is you have to have very specific brushes for different uses. If you're brushing your hair when it's wet, which is what I do to detangle it, use a detangler brush, which is a lot softer, has very soft bristles that are flexible, and is gentler on the hair as it is detangling it. I use a different type of brush for styling my hair, and this is something that you want to definitely learn how to use correctly. as you are detangling your hair, as you're avoiding getting tangles in them, knots inside of your hair, which is a completely different art in itself, when you're actually detangling it, make sure that you're being very, very gentle on your hair. Once again, these are knots, these are injected hairs, or they're V-loops in most cases, and they're gentle. They're not something that can be just pulled on and pulled on and pulled on and they're going to be healthy. It's something that you have to manage. So be careful when you're detangling your hair. Now on to our last couple points. This next one is a very specific problem that could potentially be caused by the manufacturer of your hair system, or if you're doing this process itself to your hair system, it can shorten the life of your hair system, and that is over bleaching your knots. When you are bleaching a knot inside of like lace units in order to get a better scalp look, what that's going to do is it's actually going to damage the hair. When you bleach your hair, you're actually breaking down the natural fatty acids on the hair shaft, which weakens the strand of hair. So if we're doing this at the base, at the knot, the place that's supposed to have the integrity to keep it inside of your hair system, now we're giving ourselves a reason for why the hair is coming out or why it's breaking at the knot, right? So if you're bleaching your knots yourself, this is something that you've got to be careful with, not to over bleach them. Over bleached hair is fragile and it's easy to break. All right, guys, here's the last point, and this comes down to the attachment method of the hair to the hair system. There's a couple different ways that hair is attached to hair systems. There's injected hair, there's V-looped hair, and there's different types of knots. Each of these has different longevities, if you will. And there's different types of knots. So there's double knots, there's single knots, there is bleach knots. All of these have a different integrity to them. It's like if you're rock climbing, right? Certain knots are going to be good for certain things. A double knot is the most durable knot, but it's also the most visible knot. A half knot, I believe, is the least durable, but it's also the most undetectable. It's the smallest, and generally this is going to be used for people that want that perfect hairline. But that hair is not going to be as durable. It's going to take more abuse and it's going to be easier to fall out. When it comes to V-looped and injected hair, these are attachment methods that are done inside of poly units that are very different from one another. Inside of an injected hair system, the hair is thread through, it's basically ironed, and then poly is put on top of it, so it's kind of injected, if you will. Whereas V-loop is where the hair is kind of like looped down and under and back around, and you're getting two different strands from the same exact hair. Now, from my experience, out of those two, V-loop tends to go faster for me. It tends to lose more hair more quickly, although some people say it's more believable looking. I tend to prefer the injection method. It's not, you do see some of that hair strand down in the base, and it's not something that you can really bleach because it's in between layers of poly. But I tend to find that injected hair has a really good balance of the way it looks and how long it looks. But besides just preference, this is something that will affect the longevity of your hair system and the shedding of hair inside of your hair system. So the type of knot, the type of attachment method of the hair is going to have a direct impact. So I hope this video is helpful for you guys. You're just starting to look at how you can make your hair systems last longer, how you can avoid shedding, and things to look at when you're buying a hair system. Thanks to Lord Hair for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you guys soon.